And the next thing I knowed, I was standing outside by the river.
Yo peeps, Mischief here. Today we're going to be looking into the Pascagoula, Mississippi UFO event that involved Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker. Let's get into this, people. You know what's coming. Cue the title sequence. Okay. Yo, welcome, people. So, I'm covering this Pascagoula, I hope I'm saying that right. I'm terrible with names. Pascagoula, Mississippi UFO case that happened in 1973 because new evidence has come out. So you might have seen recently a video with Howard Hughes and Philip Mantle, a Yorkshire lad. Well, say lad, who's basically a UFO researcher who's got some more evidence that's come forward from new witnesses to the events of that day that basically took place with, like I say, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker. So if you don't know the event then, let's have a little run through for you of what actually occurred. So this is a strange case then, and it's one that's never been solved. It's one that's been taken really seriously in the UFO world, and now even more so, obviously, with these events and stuff that's been happening in Congress and things coming forward. And unfortunately, Charles isn't with us any longer, but I've got some pieces of audio to play for you of him basically describing the events a little bit later on, and obviously quite a bit of video footage now from Calvin Parker, who's released a book with Philip Mantle, basically, who's helped publish it for him and get it out and basically tell his story. He wants to leave a legacy of these events. So the strange case then of the then 19-year-old Calvin Parker and then 42-year-old Charles Hickson actually began a day before this infamous encounter. So the day before then, on the 10th of October in 1973, 15 different people, including 2 policemen, reported seeing large silver UFO flying over a housing project in St. Tammany Parish, New Orleans, Louisiana. So, you know, this event started the day before with multiple witnesses to a very strange event. So only 24 hours then, on the 11th of October, later, Hickson and Parker would have the scare of their lives with a frightening encounter from a UFO and some very strange beings. So both of them were basically fishing after work. I believe that Hickson was Parker's supervisor at the time, and they decided to go down to the river to fish. While they were there, Hickson was turning around to get some bait when he heard a buzzing, a zipping sound from overhead.
I don't remember this water right here being there because it was filled in. But the car was parked here. We was down at the pier fishing, and the craft landed probably 50 foot, 50, 100 foot from the car.
He turned to see a glowing egg-shaped object. He shouted Parker, and Parker turned around to see the exact same thing coming in overhead and slowly landing, hovering just above the ground. Both men stood there completely stunned when suddenly an opening appeared on the side of the craft. Now, both of these guys are engineers, and they described this opening as being really strange. One minute it was there, then it was closed when they were dropped off.
That's when it landed behind us, and we turned around, stood up, turned around and looked, and must have been the door that opened where all the bright lights come out of.
You saw the reflection first on the water?
I saw the blue lights reflecting across the water back this way. It looked like a patrol car or something where the lights was flashing. So we stood up, turned around, and looked, and that's when the bright light happened. And that's where they came out of the craft, and they come and picked us up then and took us back aboard.
Appeared outside the craft then were three really strange looking beings. Now these have been described as big uglies. I love that description by Calvin Parker. Basically they were elephant skinned looking creatures with really thick looking long arms with pincers for hands, and they had really weird facial features. They had some kind of protrusion that looked like a nose, and two other protrusions outside of their heads which looked like well, carrots, I suppose, on a snowman, and little slit possibly underneath that might have been a mouth, and they can't recall seeing any eyes on these creatures. Just really weird wrinkled elephant-like grey skin. The beings approached them, but not by walking, but by floating towards them. They were grabbed on the shoulders, and then the men froze like they'd been injected with something. Parker recalls, as you'll see in this clip, that he remembers being touched on the back of the arm, and then he was gone.
So took us aboard their craft, and then
The mechanical.
right, the mechanical things, 3 of them did. Now the one I call the female, she never came out of the craft. In no time they sent what I call the soldiers out, or ugly ones. And they come out and got us.
But inside, once you were inside, now you were floated inside.
I floated
Once you were
inside.
You were sort of at a 45-degree angle. and
Yes,
there
ma'am.
was-
I was laid back on my back, kind of at a 45-degree angle. And when they got us, they grabbed us by the shoulder right there. And that's when I felt the injection. So,
In there, you're about 45 minutes inside the ship.
Yes,
maybe
ma'am.
As much as that.
yes, ma'am. It's hard to tell the time in there because, you know, you're scared and everything going by so fast. But we was in there, then they took us back out, set us down there, and that's where it all started.
Fascinating, you know, recount from him there. So I'm going to continue on with this part of the story then. So when the beings approached, Hickson was frozen in fear and in disbelief. He was grabbed by 2 of these creatures, and a third one took Parker, who fainted from fright. Hickson would later recount that the 2 beings put their arms under his body and supported him. He felt numb all over. He was floated into the brightly lit room inside the UFO. Inside this room floated along an eye-like device, which examined both of them all over. After this ordeal, Hickson was left floating while the beings left the room, probably to examine Parker.
And the lights coming out of the walls are softer light now. It's blue. And I don't see no bulbs, no fixtures. And we made a left turn and went about 15 foot down the hall, which was a wide hall. It was probably 8-foot hallway wide, and we come to a door. And I remember stopping at the door, and this is the first time that I got a view of what had a hold of me. And I couldn't see nothing but the skin, the face features, kind of grayish looking color.
Okay, very good. Describe as much as you can about what it looks like.
This thing was gray looking color. He didn't have no neck. And I can't make out no face on it at the moment.
Hickson was floated back outside, and so was
What
Parker.
you were like when they set you back.
I was standing there facing the river with my arms stretched out like that. And I couldn't move them. I mean, just took a minute just to get them freed up. And that's when I heard Charlie calling me in the back. And then it kind of limbered up. But he was down on the ground. I mean, he said he lost control of his legs. And I didn't lose control because I never had no control. So anyhow, Charlie was on the ground, and he kept saying, Calvin, Calvin, you okay? And that's when I turned around. Then we turned around and faced the craft, which is sitting right about here.
And as you see in the description there, they were both left kind of frozen. Hickson fell to the floor and he couldn't use his legs, and Parker was left standing there, just dazed. I believe they both sort of broke down emotionally and were just left there bewildered. Now, they remembered during the ordeal that they were examined by some kind of eye-light device. That was Hickson's recantation. And Parker remembers a female presence being there with him in this this examination room. So, as you'll see in a couple of these clips, he talks about what she did to him during this exam.
I hear a noise.
Okay.
I hear a drip, drip, drip. Sound like I'm bleeding, or feels warm, like blood coming out from my hand. She's draining the blood out for some reason.
Okay.
And I think she's replacing it with something. I'm getting weak and weaker and weaker. And I get to the stage where I don't care if I live or die. But I feel something coming in from my foot and blood going out my hand.
So what I find most fascinating from his account there of this female alien is that she looked a lot like us. Obviously her hair gave off a purple hue because of the mixture of the lighting. And yeah, just, you know, to be presented with beings that are so completely opposite to us, but, you know, bipedal and but obviously pincers for hands, to then having some kind of female entity. Obviously, it describes the female presence as not having breasts that you could see or anything, but she obviously must have looked feminine or given off some kind of feminine vibe, I suppose. But yeah, to have these two different types of beings. So Parker remembers having some kind of blood draining procedure, and so does Hickson. Now, they both said they had puncture wounds on them, which, as you'll see later on, actually came out to be factual. And in the UFO research group in America, they found some archives. Let me just find where that is. The Center for UFO Research had photos of puncture wounds on both the foot and the arms. So I believe it was the foot of Parker and somewhere on his arm as well, and on the arm of Hickson. And this showed that they had some process done to them where their blood was drained and replaced with something else. Now, I just want to go off on a bit of a tangent here with this blood draining thing, because this is, well, it resembles the procedures done during cattle mutilations. You know, they say that cattle have gone wherever they've gone, and when they're back, obviously organs are taken, which luckily it seems nothing was taken other than their blood, which, you know, their blood was taken. And you'll see a little bit later on that this other witness has now come forward was possibly there being examined at the same time as these two. So they were having their blood drained and other examinations done on them. Hicks remembers some kind of eye-like device examining him. And then they were taken back outside the ship. Now I'm going to play a clip in a second, which you'll see Parker describing when he came round from basically this procedure where he sort of blacked out. So here's the two clips together.
Pretty much is through with me. I got the strength. The big one held me up, and I put my clothes back on voluntarily. And for some reason, I wasn't afraid no more. I was mad. And I threw her against the wall when she come back the second time. And I was beating her head against the wall. And the big ugly one. And I called him out because I couldn't make it out. Gave me some kind of something. I could hear the psh again. And I just went limp. And the next thing I knowed, I was standing outside by the river.
So Parker obviously describes their beating up this alien that came back in once he'd sort of regained his strength, and then being taken back out again by this other elephant man being snow elephant person. I don't know what to call it. I'm not making fun of it. I'm just trying to think of what to actually call these creatures, you know, and where do they come from? So just referencing a video that I did last week, which was the Penrith incident in Wales near Cardiff. Obviously that vessel there appeared to come out of nowhere. This one, when he said it, you'll see in a minute, it describes it lifting off after they were left there outside the craft, and the craft sat there for a good minute or two while they were sort of coming round outside. I'm guessing, I don't know what they were doing, putting some bits away, you know, tidying up, putting in the coordinates of their home planet or the other dimension where they came from, because as you'll hear, it describes it lifting off and then just vanishing, either shooting away or disappearing. So here we go.
Still there
Yes, ma'am.
during that while y'all were recovering. It was still sitting there.
Oh, yeah. And then the lights just disappeared. The bright light disappeared. And it took up, it picked straight up and went up a little ways, then it just disappeared like lightning. I mean, it was gone.
So after the ordeal, then they were unsure of what to do exactly. So they contacted Kelsier Air Force Base. Kelsier referred their problem to the local sheriff's department. So that's where they went. They met up with local law enforcement who interviewed them. The sheriff obviously didn't believe them at the time and left them alone in a room with a tape recorder hidden in a drawer. The deputy went back in just after, I think it was about half an hour or so, and called the men out, went in and took the tape recorder. And they thought, yeah, we got the guys, we've got them. They listened to the tape recorder, and lo and behold, the guys were telling the truth. Basically, they were both talking about the incident, still in shock, you know, saying that they're not going to be believed, and etc., etc. And it was after that, obviously, that things started coming out in the press. Now, the sheriff believed both of them. He said that he couldn't really see any reason why they would be making this stuff up. So another interesting fact as well is that they were given a lie detector test and put under hypnotic regression at the time. So this is the close encounter to be reported to date. after the event. I think it was reported like an hour or so, within that immediate hour after the event, by both of them.
This is him speaking, I think, is it the day after?
The day after,
Right.
well, the interviewer came looking for Charlie and Calvin, and of course they were at the hospital being examined. And like news reporters, they needed a story, so the next best option was the sheriff. And this was the morning after.
Here he is.
This same object that was supposed to have picked these two men up was spotted about 45 minutes earlier up near the Van Cleve area. It was also spotted by 2 or 3 people in Pascagoula.
In other words, Sheriff Diamond, you've had, I know we talked to Deputy Glenn Ryder earlier this morning. There have been quite a few reports of this UFO in our area, and approximately at the same time that these two men have stated that they were taken aboard.
That's very true. They even give us a description of the creatures or characters, whichever we might want to call them. It was aboard the craft. They give a good description of them. They seemed to be around 5 foot tall. They were real wrinkled and had sharp ears, sharp nose, and their mouth was very near the end of the nose. They were horrible creatures from the description we got from them.
So Dr. J. Allen Hynek was contacted a few days later, and a representative from the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, or APRO, of California, Professor James Harder, to investigate alongside him. Now, J. Allen Hynek actually said that there was definitely something that was not terrestrial. That's one of the things he stated. And now, J. Allen Hynek, obviously, as I've covered in a few episodes, he basically turned around on a lot of the cases that he'd done, that he'd put down, because the US government had told him to put the cases down.
From the ground, and almost instantly an opening appeared at one end. And there's no way for me to express the feelings I had when these 3 things appeared in that opening. My God, Calvin, what's happened? I'll never forget those words. As I glanced toward Calvin, he seemed to be going in shock. These 2 inches tall, the head seemed to come directly to the shoulders without a neck. The nose was about 1.5 inches long, and he came to a point. The ears were similar to the nose, maybe a little longer. And directly under the nose was a slit. It resembled a mouth. There could have been eyes. I can't recall what they looked like. Their skin, or it could have been some type of clothing, reminds me of elephant skin, and it was very wrinkled, and it seemed to shine. The arms resembled human arms, but the hands were webbed with something like a thumb, more like pincers, and the arms were long in proportion to the body. The legs remained together, and the feet seemed to be round, like an elephant's foot. And these things seemed to glide about the same height from the ground as the craft, and almost instantly were upon us. 2 of them took hold of my arms from the side.
So there you go then. That is the clip from from Johnny Cash there, as the great Howard Hughes likes to say. It sounds like Johnny Cash on the Johnny Cash reverb there. So anyway, so his account there, and their account's fantastic. And I just want to say that their account is obviously backed up by lots of different witnesses, and they are listed in the Beyond Reasonable Doubt, which is the book which is being produced by Philip Mantle for Calvin Parker. And it's got loads of stuff in there, loads of different accounts, photos, evidence that's been brought forward. So I'd go and check that out. That is a great book to read and get into. You've got people that, you know, came forward, like the pastor, Emmanuel Sigales, who was basically doing an AA meeting at a church. And during that drive home, they saw this blue sort of light object flying in the direction of them, of Calvin. I actually think, looking at this event now, with this new evidence come forward, that Calvin and Hickson were just, well, bad timing. wrong place, wrong time, if you want to, right place, right time, but bad, wrong place, wrong time, you know, either or, because it seems to me like they were actually coming from Maria and Jerry.
I just didn't want them being around me. I didn't want them touching me. I just wanted them to go on, leave me alone, but that didn't happen. I still feel scared about it because it was something that happened so suddenly, and I didn't know what they were. My husband did, but I didn't.
From what it seems, Jerry, who only came forward when he was about to pass away, I believe he was ill. For years he'd denied anything had happened. Maria had some weird memory of some fish man or something flopping up in front of her on the deck and then jumping back in the water and losing around 3 hours, I believe, 9 o'clock until 12. So she went on board the boat because basically her husband, Jerry, works on a fishing boat, I believe, or some kind of boat down there. And she went down there with him. They were waiting to go down because he was waiting to start work, so she was waiting with him. And then some stuff happened. She saw something flying around. Didn't know what it was. Thought it was a plane. Thought the pilot was lost. Then her husband said to walk down towards the pier, even though the boat wasn't there yet, or something along these lines. Then she sees this thing. Then she remembers either going to the boat or going somewhere, and then coming back to the car. And this was 9 o'clock, and then 9 p.m. She gets back to the car at 12 midnight. And she doesn't know. She's really scared. She doesn't know why she's scared. She doesn't know what's going on. So.
And I was only like 23 years old at the time. So the world was still new to me out there, and seeing something like that was really shocking. And could I have it happen again? No, I wouldn't.
If they were harvesting DNA material from human beings, and from you in particular, I'm sure you have, but have you ever over the years given thought to the fact that there might be some hybrid human stroke alien person walking around that has elements of you in it?
Definitely. And I'm pretty sure there probably is. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that they did get some of my eggs, and I'm pretty sure that things happened that I don't know. There's something in my mind that I know something happened or something went on that I can't just put my finger on and place it. It's just there, but I just can't know what it is. It's like being kept from me. And I always thought that my husband knew exactly what happened to me, but I still say he kept things from me from all them years.
Obviously, in the little clip that I played for you, you heard her speaking about it. So it leads me to believe, was Jerry in communication with these beings? Has he been abducted before? Like she said that he claimed that he knew more, but he didn't want to say more. But obviously he said to her that, something had happened, that they had been abducted, or she had been abducted. So had he promised them to bring them his wife for eggs, which is what she's claiming? Like people obviously want to speculate human hybrids, and from Parker's account of this female type woman, alien lady person, could that be a hybrid? Could these robotic mechanic kind of elephant beings be just henchmen for them so that they can capture people? I mean, I'm not sure if there's any other accounts of these type of beings, but my goodness, with more stuff coming forward, it's just absolutely insane. And those clips from there are just... So, I'm not telling you what to think. And unlike Parker says, you can either believe him or not believe him. He's not trying to make anyone, do anything or come out with anything. And I don't see any reason why they would have made this up. It's not he's done a book now, but Parker hid for years. Hickson came forward more than anything. He wrote a book and did talks and things to try and explain what had happened. And Parker obviously tried to stay away from it all. He joined the military and tried to get away and didn't want anything to happen because, he was trying to marry his wife and all this stuff, and thought that her father wouldn't let them because of him seeing a UFO and et cetera, et cetera. So, crazy stuff like that, traditional things. So let me know in the comments, what you guys think about this, what you think about the new evidence. Go check out the full episode of Howard Hughes. If you go check out Howard Hughes there, and just let me know what you think of the full podcast episode there, and I'll keep doing more podcast episodes for you all night long. So, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Just a bit about the new evidence obviously has come forward. The case there, if you've never heard it before, yeah, basically exactly as it's been told to you, as you've seen it in the clips. You know, they were approached by 3 beings taken aboard a craft and examined. Descriptions of at least 3 different beings or 3 different entities that have, you know, done stuff to them. And then you've got, you know, Maria, and it's absolutely mind-boggling, you know, all those witnesses, and then the abduction, and then, you know, at least 4 people there being abducted and given the same kind of descriptions of craft and entities, and not, you know, you don't come forward to something like this unless it actually happened to you. I don't think so anyway, you know. So I am going to be covering Travis Walton and that case there in full at some point, because again, that's another one with multiple witnesses, you know, people that were actually accused of murder because he went missing for 5 days, you know. Obviously these guys were gone for, I think they said around about 40 minutes to an hour, something like that, but they were drained of blood. I'm not exactly sure what happened to Maria, but I'm pretty sure she's saying that she had eggs taken. I mean, what do they want? I mean, they're even making some kind of weird human black pudding and tiny omelettes, or some kind of hybrid people that need to drink blood, or space vampires. Whoa! I don't think we need space vampires, do we? Yeah, please let me know, like I said before, what you think in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I would just like to say thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. If you've got any episodes that you would like me to cover, please leave a comment below. And yeah, just thank you so much for subscribing. There's 163 of you. I didn't expect to get more than 2, to be fair, when I first started doing this. I have sent an email to Philip Mantle to hopefully get him on for an interview. So that'd be very nice, because that'd be my first ever interview on the Conspiracy Cupboard. And someone from the UK that's from Yorkshire, good Yorkshire lad, you know, that's investigating UFOs. Like I said, it's very nice to see. You know, we've got a lot of stuff going off in Sheffield Hallam University and stuff about it. You know, and obviously government involvement somewhere in a UFO crash retrieval program and other things. So it's nice to see a good old Yorkshire lad talking about it and coming across straight and, you know, looking at it. And yeah, if we could all actually take this seriously in the UK and, you know, put our heads together and go, what is going off? And is it something that the government wants to keep from us because they know deep down that they can't, you know, hide it from us anymore? And when it finally comes out, we'll realise that we're all part of some kind of intergalactic brotherhood that, you know, means we can go into space and be free. And or are they going to destroy us? it be a War of the Worlds situation? Or are they beings from another dimension? Who knows? I mean, like I said, the case in Wales, really weird, coming from somewhere else. This one seems to be a craft, physical, metal, solid craft with beings inside them, not like the beings described in Penrith. So maybe there's more than one thing going on. Maybe you have got aliens, maybe you have got interdimensional beings. I don't know, but this is a fascinating case. So once again, thank you very much, Philip. Thank you, Howard Hughes. For putting together that great piece there for us. And yeah, thank you very much to everyone that's subscribed. And thank you to Philip Parker, for coming. Philip Parker, Calvin Parker, for coming forward and telling your story. I can imagine it must be very hard to do that, especially with the background that you came from, and the upbringing that you had. Straight laced, and people around you might frown upon it, but obviously now, with everything that's coming forward, like I've said, it's the perfect time to find out exactly what the hell is going on. So until next time, I shall see you later. Thanks a lot, peeps. Oh, I just want to say, I'm going to be doing an episode, obviously, on Avebury and Stonehenge and some other places around the UK. And if you have any stories at all from Avebury or Stonehenge about crop circles, seeing lights in the sky, anything weird there, if you live in the area, please drop me a comment or just send me a message. Cheers, peeps.
And the next thing I knowed, I was standing outside by the river.